Awesome. We are in and we are live. While people are trickling in, I thought we could open and just say if you were on a desert island, what would be the one food that you would have with you?
Do you want to start, Larry, on that one?
Coconut.
Mm, I would have to agree. Coconut. Yeah.
Coconut.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Last
Yeah.
time they said pizza. I think I
Mhm.
would go with a fruit as well. Maybe like strawberries or something. I don't
If
know.
it's for, I would say if it's for survival reasons, coconut is a good option. Provide hydration from the coconut water, and the coconut flesh itself is nutritious. So,
Yeah, that's a win all around. Larry was ready
mhm.
to go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We're really excited to dive in and explore how QA and food safety leaders can unlock food safety data in their facilities. As we're diving in, would love it if everyone could just comment where they're joining us from. And then if you have throughout the conversation any questions, just share them in the comments. And we'll spend a lot of time on audience QA at the end. Got two experts in the field who would love to field some questions. And really, the one goal for this discussion is for QA food safety leaders who are dipping their toes in data and analytics in their facilities to feel more equipped to do that by the end. So I guess we'll start just with introducing yourselves and then talk a little bit about why you work in food. So we'll start. Larry, do you want to start? And Fabian?
Sure. Larry Rehmann. I've been in the food industry for over 20 years. Had time with Diamond Foods. I had a stint with Superior Foods in Chicago, and then spent 6, 7 years with Eckert Frozen Foods as the CEO. And I enjoy the challenge of food companies. There's never a dull day. Food companies are incredibly complex and challenging, and I guess I just fell in love with it going into it. And I enjoy the food community. The community is large, but at the same time, it's relatively small. And I still have many friends today from my time in the food industry, and they support me, and I support them, going forward. So I think those are the two big reasons why I enjoy working with food companies.
That's great.
Hello, everybody. My name is Fabian Martinez. I'm thrilled to be here today. My career spans over 12 years, mostly in food safety and quality, a little bit of R&D. I have experience with multiple categories, yes, meat and poultry, seafood. I also have some experience with controlled environment agriculture, indoor farming, which was fascinating experience. The reason why I in the food industry is because I love the creativity and passion that food manufacturing and professionals put into making new foods every day, following nutritional trends and the wellness, the wellness aspect of it, how everybody is trying to find better solutions regarding their health, and food is a vital part of people's health. So also the fact that the food needs to be safe, in quality and safe. If it's not safe and it's not of good quality, then people won't eat it. So those two things, brought me to the food industry.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we're super glad to have you both. I'm Patty. I'm the founder at Alera. And I guess what brought me to the food industry is I have a food allergy. So I've been to the hospital multiple times, and it just kind of clued me into how food safety affects all of our lives. Even the big decisions on the macro side of the food industry affects individuals. So excited to, yeah, at Alera, we help companies go digital and automate supplier management, and love working with QA and food safety departments. So yeah, we'll just dive right in. The focus on this is data and analytics. So we thought we'd just start kind of ease into it with why is data important for food companies. Larry will bring more of the CEO perspective, and then we'll jump over to Fabian on the QA side. So Larry, I guess for you, why is data important from your perspective as a CEO for food companies?
I mean, frankly, analytics is important for any company. And I'll start off with the analogy I mentioned to you earlier. Imagine driving your car at night with no headlights. You don't know where you're going. And you need data to make informed decisions, bottom line. You need it's used day to day to make decisions as well as strategic planning decisions. Data overall, analytics is used to improve efficiency and productivity, more effective decision making, drive better financial performance. Analytics provides a competitive edge by identifying market gaps and niches and areas for innovation. With data analysis, businesses can identify potential risks and uncertainties, enabling them to develop strategies to navigate and mitigate these challenges. I mean, I think those are the primary reasons that analytics is so important to companies.
Yeah. Fabian, what about you?
From the food safety quality assurance team, managers, directors perspective, I think that like right now, there's a big push from the FDA for smarter food safety and bringing in all the digital tools and traceability being one of them, one of the pillars. Another one is creating a gene bank or utilizing the information like DNA information for specific pathogen recognition and traceability of that pathogen, where it came from. And that's all great, obviously, but I think that from the individual facility standpoint of view, we have been collecting data for so long, and mainly to provide or demonstrate compliance with regulatory requirements and audits and SQF, BRC, whichever audit scheme, GMPs. And so we have so much data available that we can start utilizing to unlock answers and perform what I call data-driven root cause analysis. So not just trying to brainstorm a scenario of why something happened, but actually collecting data or already data that we have, and then digging in and finding out why did this happen and how can we then prevent it from happening again. So not only having a reactive approach which is important as well, obviously if something happened, we need to dig in and find out what happened, but also having a proactive approach. Okay, I have all this data now. What else, or what other answers can I be, what other questions can I be answering? And start digging in on that data, so that we are proactive in avoiding the food safety issues, risks that are present in today's food industry.
Yeah. So it sounds like for Larry as the CEO, he's saying, hey, you can't even run the company without data, kind of shows the direction of where we're headed or where we should be going. But then Fabian saying, hey, data as food safety people can help us go from reactive to proactive, and we're already doing all the work. Have you all seen that change in your time in the last 10, 20, 30 years in the food space?
I think analytics certainly have gotten stronger over the time with the efficiencies of computers and just the speed with which information moves today. Analytics have gotten stronger and more necessary to be competitive in the world today. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that more and more as we dive in the digital world, which is inevitable, more and more companies will start using analytics, data science tools, AI. I mean, I envision a future where you have a screen and you start screening your facility, whether it's by a video camera or temperature or whatever, and the screen itself, the AI in the system is going to start telling you there's a potential risk here and there's a potential risk there. So I think that's where we are heading eventually at some point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess for like why data is important, and then where do you even start? Like, what's the first step? If you're leaving this call and you're saying, hey, data is important, where do you start?
I think you got to start answering some of the questions. I mean, data analytics tells you where you've been, tells you what you've done, and can actually tell you where you should be going, so forth. So you start with those questions, and you flow down based on KPIs that start to feed that information to you. Fabian can probably answer what some of those analytics might be, but certainly in the food world, first pass quality, recovery yield, labor hours by pound, overtime by pound are just some of the many KPIs that are out there to tell you how you're doing, what you're doing, and where you should be going.
Yeah. From a food safety perspective, you start. I mean, I think we've already started. Again, as I said earlier, we've been collecting data for showing to demonstrate compliance for so long, that we already have a lot of data compiled, that it just needs to be processed and analyzed at this point. And then from there on, as Larry's saying, like start looking at the KPIs within the company and start looking at, what solutions can we start bringing to avoid food safety, to avoid a food safety issue, to avoid a recall. And like the data is already there. And yeah, there's other um, specific information that we can, as we start digging into the data, we can start realizing, well, what now we need this other information, or what if we incorporate this other information that we didn't have before, or we need to start tracking now temperatures here or there, proximity of a drain to exterior walls or exterior doors. Like, there's so much that can be done, so much data that's already available, and more that can be collected and analyzed. And the focus of all of this, from a food safety quality perspective, is to avoid having an issue in the first place. So if you had a listeria positive in one of your drains, why did that happen? And then avoid having preconceived ideas, like, for example, um, like we know, well, maybe something, some blood or raw meat or something got into the drain, but was that really the reason? Maybe the meat did. I mean, usually it does have it, but maybe it came from another source. So start understanding what other potential sources, or other potential ways of that listeria got into the drain in the first place. And I think data can help us to unlock those answers. And it would be very beneficial for the individual facilities to start doing that and be able to do that.
Yeah, from a more overall standpoint, too, I mean, data, as I mentioned earlier, is used for two reasons, right? One is to look for competitive advantages. You do that on the sales side, you can do that on the operation side, you can do that throughout the company, to look what competitive advantages you have based on the data. And then certainly identifying your risks and uncertainties, managing a company. That's what, a big portion of what you do when you manage a company is manage risk. You can't eliminate it. So how do you mitigate it? And data is critical for that.
Mm. So it sounds like the common thread here is the questions you're asking about your data, where Larry's saying like, hey, where have we been? Where are we going? And Fabian saying like, well, why did this happen? Can it be overwhelming, like the amounts of data that you're collecting, or like where, how do you know what questions to ask about your data?
Yeah, it's time is a critical element to decision making. When do you have to make that decision? If you don't have to make that decision, probably should make it the next day, because you can collect more data, collect more information about the decision you're about to make. So, from my perspective, I look for data that was timely, obviously accurate, and consistent. I looked for those trends, and I made the decision when I had to make the decision, not necessarily when I wanted to make the decision.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I guess repeat the question, Patty.
Yeah, just where do you start with question asking? Because it sounds
Right.
like that's what separates a good facility from a great facility as far as leveraging data.
So I guess obviously start with the direction of the business, that the CEO and the corporate or whatever structure is there, um, you know gives the business to follow. And then from there on, it's just as Larry was saying, it's risk assessment, and how are we avoid risks that could become very costly. um, an example, as I was mentioning earlier, is the listeria. And now you have a listeria positive, and that could be such a major problem for a company, because then you might have to start figuring out where else could it be, where did it come from, extra cleaning, extra labor hours for cleaning. You might have if you get a listeria positive in a direct food contact surface, now you have lots that might be involved with that. So all of that can have a heavy cost in the company. So trying to find out in the first place where or what were the pathways that listeria strain went through to get to that drain or to that direct food contact surface, utilizing data, it's, in my opinion, is very important. And I think that's something that the industry and the individual plants and facilities needs to start going through, because again, it could cost you a recall, it could cost you a lot of money on mitigating that issue. So if you can avoid to having that issue in the first place because you've already established where could it come from utilizing data, then it's just a win-win for everybody, because it wins the company because you don't have you avoid the risk, you avoid the problem, not just the risk but the problem. Is win-win for public health, because now you don't have a listeria strain out there, another one. um, and that's and that's where you start from the company focus, but then you look into your specific area, which is food safety and quality, and start determining, okay, what are the risks and what could cost the company significantly, not only financially but morally and the brand itself. um, and then that's how you start establishing what data to collect, and where do we go from there, and what analysis do we do, what trends do we check, and again, having an open mind, as well as I was saying, not just having a preconceived idea, oh, it's coming from here. No, no, no. Let's just really look at the data and find out where it's coming from. Because yeah, we know that this is where it usually comes from, but there may be other reasons or other ways that ended up in that problem happened. And I think data again can help us to unlock those answers.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some CEOs listening that it's music to their ears hearing like, hey, let's start with the company objectives, the CEO's objectives, and explore data from there. I think Dustin, who was on our last call, is a CEO, and he always says that he loves to be spoon-fed data. So I think that's a great first step, is how do you, as quality food safety leaders, like spoon feed your CEO, spoon feed your VP of Ops, the data in a digestible way.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, go ahead.
I was saying that some of the best practices when it comes to data are, tailoring your report to whoever your audience is. If it's food safety and quality managers, the language that they understand is risks and bacteria and ATP swabs and lab results and um, people's GMPs and what's happening and those kind of things. If you're talking to a CEO, they want to see finances and how we avoiding risk and how we are, saving the company from having a problem, or not only financially but also, um, a recall that could cause damage to the brand. So I think tailoring your report and the way you present the data to your audience is key when going, when it comes to best practices in analyzing data.
Yeah, you would be surprised, Fabian, how much a CEO, wants detailed data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some things that you think would exist just in the QA department or the food safety department, um, you know, and something we've talked about before, on a monthly basis, we like to review those kind of things. And we might, on certain data, if there's certain hotspots that the data is showing us that we've got um, possible risk, we might expect daily or weekly reports on data on the subject as well. So uh, I think, data does come at you every day, and deciphering it and making sure that it's pertinent to what the company's mission is and the company's goals and objectives are is critical.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I know we're in the heat of it here, so if viewers want to throw some questions in while we're chatting, feel free to do that. But both of you, do you find that the data around food safety can be a motivating force for, maybe it's reporting to the CEO or the board, or maybe it's like with supervisors, techs on the floor? I think we hear from companies to actually like pin a dashboard up and show like, oh no, we hit 100% on these checks, and that was our goal, is very motivating. Uh, Any examples in your experience from that?
Hmm. I think examples. I think there were quantitative objectives that we had in place based on data um, that had potential rewards for people to do good and to commit to the program. And I think they worked very, very well overall. So I do think keeping people informed, keeping employees informed on data analysis and the performance, the ongoing performance, and the trend. You know, are we trending up? Are we trending down? Are we trending well? Are we trending bad? Is very important to motivating employees, particularly in the food safety area.
I agree with Larry, and keeping people informed and also involved. QA tech supervisors, people taking, recording the information. They love to be part of the effort to making sure that the company is succeeding, and they're, it's all, we're all on the same team. So bringing them in and explaining the reasons why we are, collecting this data, and going even further, that it's not just for compliance reasons, it's also for, so that we can start analyzing data and start understanding better the processes and the facility itself, and explaining to them why the quality of the data is so important, and it needs to be accurate, and it needs to be relevant to the issue, um, and it needs to be complete. We cannot have halfway data. So all of those things, explaining to them, and involving them in the process, and then sharing the results with them, in their own language, is extremely, I think it's so motivating for them, as well as for the CEOs and the other executives and other teams as well. Like, everybody, at least in my experience, everybody is always been very involved in food safety, and because it could be a big problem. You don't want to make anybody sick, and also you want the company to succeed, you want the brand to flourish. um, so again, sharing the information and sharing the results with the whole team, is very motivating and very important.
And why do you think some companies aren't doing it in the food facilities in particular? I feel like there's a lot of catching up to do. Is it lack of resources, lack of time? Why do you think the food industry is a little behind?
I don't know if the food industry is behind. I don't know if that's an accurate statement, but I do agree with that some companies don't incentivize um, food safety workers to commit to programs. And I think it really comes down to time and money, and maybe money and time. Um, Depending on whether the food safety department is adequately staffed and can actually spend time with the data, analyzing it, and reporting on it to their group, reporting to management, so to speak. And then I think people hold back because there is money involved in incentive programs and things like that, and tend not to do it because of that.
Mm.
They don't see the return in it.
Yeah, I think it's a lack of understanding as well sometimes, of the repercussions of having a big food safety problem, happening. So I think that driving the food safety culture across the board in the entire company, from the CEOs to sanitation people, the QAs, the production personnel, everyone, like everybody needs to understand that. So driving that food safety culture, and explaining the reasons why food safety and quality, especially food safety in this case, is so important. Helps the people that are decision makers to make the right decisions, and um, start implementing this culture, and start implementing these practices, so that and at the end of the day, it's part of all the risk management and risk assessment. If you have a good food safety program, you are mitigating and reducing the risks of having a recall and the risks of damage in the company, big time. So I think that the best way to approach that is to drive the food safety culture, um, in any company.
Oh, that's great. We got a question here is how can you explain ROI when you want to implement a new system? When you're thinking about maybe, taking the actual data and transferring it, but how do you, Fabian or Larry, like, how do you transfer data into concrete ROI?
I think personally on this one, uh, if you've got the data and the data is showing a certain outcome and you want to change that outcome and you're going to have to spend money on it, then you have to ask yourself, if we change that number, if we change that outcome, are we going to save any money? I mean, is it a strictly a monetary decision, and say I'm going to save X amount of dollars, but I have to spend this, and this is what my ROI? Or is there a qualitative reason that I have to change that outcome because it's got a negative impact on, and then if we're talking the food safety world, many times you have to go into your plant and just change something because maybe you've got a listeria problem in a certain area. There's no ROI on that. I mean, that's simply, I may have to remove platforms, I may have to remove walkways, I may have to remove machinery to get at a place to clean better, because my plant map is showing consistent hits of certain pathogens in this area. So I think that's how you go about that one.
Yeah.
I think, in my experience, it's always been, trying to calculate something, the industry calls it the cost of quality, the cost of food safety. It's not something that you see right away. It's not a product that you are selling every day, but it's the risk management aspect of it. And it's the fact that one sick person can cost a lot of money. So if you can avoid having that one person getting sick, you are going to be saving a lot of money. So it goes back again to the risk analysis and, showing why implementing a new system or a new program is going to avoid the risk of having this issue, which eventually can become in somebody getting sick. So if you can show that and kind of do the math and show it in the right way with the right language, I think that's how you can explain ROI when you're implementing a new system.
Definitely. And we got another question from Christian Gerber. What's a specific example or anecdote where you use data to improve your process? I know we can get a little theoretical here, so it's good to break it back down and hear about some specific times where you guys have used data. I know you both got a lot of examples after we talked last time.
Well, we have at the company I was at before, we were highly reliant on temporary labor force. And with minimum wage increasing significantly over a 5-year period, we knew we had to do something in the plant, basically to automate. So, using our labor numbers, using our throughput numbers, using our yield numbers, we were able to come up with a scenario where automating a specific section of our plant, basically when the peppers are flowing out of the wash station and going through the plant, we had people that were checking for blemishes and things like that, defects, and removing them from the line. And we automated that with a piece of machinery, and we used our throughput labor and recovery numbers to quantify that into an ROI.
Yeah, without going into much detail because proprietary reasons, but um, I, we were in one of my previous companies. There was we were having a lot of issues with ATP swabbings. So we started analyzing the data and started realizing the reasons why certain items were, more prone to fail the ATP test versus others. So we ended up doing a bigger study, collecting more data, validating the SOP, making sure that the sanitation team was doing the right thing. And then we were able to, the results were that we modified the entire ATP program schedule, and we ended up having to swap more frequently certain instruments that were more prone to do that. Versus others. But overall, we were also able to remove the total amount of swaps that we were doing daily because it was not necessary to do that many. And another situation where you have specific allergen tests, we were able to start looking at the data for years, and we were able to reduce the frequency of that because we realized that doing specific SOPs or SSOPs uh, were effective. So if we were doing the SSOPs correctly, we were able to reduce the amount of swaps that we were doing, which overall in both instances ended up in cost savings in the long run, without jeopardizing food safety. And this is all reactive. So you're reacting to something. I think that the companies need to start taking the proactive approach as well. And you already have the data, so start looking into it, start digging in, start finding trends that right now you're not thinking about it, but if you give it a hard look, you can see, okay, why is this happening, and is it possible that is there a solution? Is there something that is happening that I'm missing? And data can help you to unlock that answer, and it become a cost savings as well, or a risk mitigating tool or process that you put in place that it's gonna save you, it's gonna save the company money in the long run because it's gonna avoid having the risk in the first place.
Mhm.
So for that, Fabian, you said you took years of allergen tests, and did you take them and put them into Excel and crunch the numbers, or whose job was that? That sounds like it was a lot of, yeah, a lot of
Yes.
digging through numbers.
So there Excel is a great tool, and yes, but the time that's what we use. But right now, there's so many other tools right now. With coding, that you can use Jupyter notebooks, Python. You can do R Studio. Um, Again, there's so many tools out there right now. You can, if you don't know coding, you could do like Tableau or Power BI, and those analytics tools can help you put the data in. You can do a little bit of data transformation, data wrangling, depending on the data that you have, and then start, filtering and doing, different things that you can do to start analyzing the data and looking for trends. And maybe things that when I do some of the analysis, sometimes I'm like amazed at all the things that I can find out that I didn't even think of in the first place. Like, wow, this is incredible that I'm having this result where I thought it was the opposite. um, Again, data, it's the future, and it can unlock many things that right now we either don't know or we think it's in a way and it might be a different way. And the bottom line is, again, to mitigate the risks in the first place, mitigate the problems and the issues in the first place. So that, and that's the ROI, is the fact that you won't have the problem in the first place, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, yeah. Be proactive rather than reactive. I feel like that's a big takeaway. I guess as we're wrapping up here, unless there are burning questions, I think the last question I have for you both is just as we think about the future of food, like where do you think 10 years from now, how will we be thinking about data differently than we do today? Something to keep, some food safety thoughts to keep you up at night.
Go ahead,
Uh,
Fabian. I'm developing my thoughts.
I think one of the things that is going to be that data is going to help us with is, again, I was saying, is to have some sort of a scanning system that you go throughout your facility. It can sensors, cameras. It's going to measure. It's going to see them, but it's going to see the facility, and it's going to start pointing out, hey, there might be a risk here. This drain proximity to the exterior door can be a problem. You don't have a food bath in here. This pipe over here is over the food processing, and you didn't even realize it. I think that's I think that's part of the future. Another thing that I was actually thinking recently as well, and regarding food allergies, is the food allergies is something that is somewhat recent. So I think data is going to start, DNA analysis and those kind of really deep sciencey, microbiology and genetics, and think data is going to help us to better understand the food allergies and cross reactivity, and how can we start developing foods that you might have peanuts, but it's still, is there a solution for individuals to have peanuts and not having a food allergy to peanuts? So I think that, from that perspective as well, data is going to help us to solve those issues. And another thing that data is already helping is having the gene bank of listeria and all the different pathogens that are out there, well identified, and where were the sources, where they came from, and then start, if I am a customer, I'm getting my supplies of any food, my raw material from this company. This company might have a record of that listeria, so I might want to be extra careful on the things that I'm bringing in, or I want to do my own testing. I don't know, different, so I guess that having that traceability when it comes to the actual pathogens, which is already happening, but I think more and more is going to also be very helpful for the industry. And again, sorry, Larry, the possibilities are endless. With data and AI, the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
I think in 10 years, having worked in industry for 40 years, I've seen how the speed of information has just gone from 60 miles an hour to Mach 1. And I think that trend will continue. I think, when you look at analytics, you want analytics to be timely, accurate, consistent, and pertinent. And I think that will continue to be the case 10 years from now. But information will move much faster. I agree with Fabian that collection of data will become more automated, and the expectation for data will be much higher.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That sounds like a much safer food world to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to be there, especially as someone with a food allergy. Fabian, you got me excited.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. Really appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for watching, and good luck unlocking data in your facilities.
Yes.
Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Fabian.
We're together.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.